instructor, Mr. Aguilar, and today we're going to go over drawing fundamentals. So this is going to be a brief video that's going to focus solely on pencil grip and shading, or the application of value. Real fast before we start, a couple of things. One, I'm going to be using a 2B pencil. It's softer and it creates darker values, meaning it'll show up better on the camera. If I use an HB or a 2H pencil, the camera will not be able to pick up a lot of the marks I'm going to make today. The other thing I want to talk about is this is not your standard pencil. This is a Mars Lumigraph black pencil, and basically it's designed for doing tutorials because it helps prevent reflecting light like a pencil does. So it doesn't shade exactly the same way an art pencil would, but again, we're going to be talking about grips and we're going to be talking about techniques. We're not going to be doing anything spectacular here. So first of all, let's start off by calling this drawing fundamentals. And we're going to be talking about a couple of different grips. So one of the things we're going to be talking about is underhand grips. So underhand grips is basically just like it sounds. And then an overhand grip, where the pencil is going to be over your hand and resting right here. So we're going to start at the back of the pencil. And we're simply going to lay down our values. One thing that you might have just noticed is I'm turning the paper to match the angle of my hand, which is roughly at a 45-degree angle. So we're going to start with the back of the pencil grip. And I'm just going to apply some value. You'll also see me looking over to check the camera, just to see if it's getting picked up. Okay, so that is going to be on the back of the pencil. So we're just going to label this back of pencil. And now we're going to go to our second underhand grip, which is going to be about 1/3 the way down. And we're just going to do the same thing. So you should already see that the value is increasing. One thing I want to mention is I'm not increasing pressure, I'm just holding the pencil naturally. So this is going to be the back 1/3. Now we're going to go to our last underhand grip, which is going to be our middle grip. It's going to fit right into your palm. And you're going to see that each time we lower our grip, as we get farther and farther down on the pencil, our values are going to get darker. And that's because we're adding more pressure. More weight equals more pressure equals a darker value. And then this is going to be our middle. And then we're going to go to our front 1/3. Now when you switch from an underhand to an overhand, you will feel the difference and you'll hear the difference when you're applying values. Okay, so this is going to be front 1/3, and then our last grip is going to be like we normally write with. Now, we're just going to call this the front. One thing I do want to say while we're here, and normally I do go to dark values this fast. So we're going to talk about building up our values in a second. When you're holding a pencil to draw, only about 5% of the time will you ever be down here. 90% of the time you're going to be middle to the back. So let's say 5%, 5%, and then from the middle on back, that's where you're going to spend most of the time drawing. So you have to get used to, if you're learning how to draw, you have to get used to not holding your pencil like you're writing. You got to hold your pencil like you're drawing. So that's really important. The next thing we want to talk about is building up values. So we don't want to go straight to a dark value. When you go straight to a dark value, you get these things called streaks. Okay, and these streaks is your pencil actually digging into the paper and leaving grooves. So this is straight to dark. And it doesn't matter how well you shade after that point, you'll never be able to get rid of the streaks. So what we want to do is we want to build up our values. So usually I'll start with a nice underhand medium value. And again, we're moving quickly, right? And while I mentioned that, you could do a fantastic 20-minute drawing and spend the next 4 hours shading. Right? So rendering and shading take way longer than drawing. The other thing you want to do is you want to try shading at different angles, because graphite likes to push each other around, and the more they push each other around, the smoother they get. So I'm going to switch. I went from underhand middle, I'm going to go to overhand middle, and that's going to be slightly darker. And then I'm going to go down to a bottom third. And I really don't need to go down too far, but I'll give it another once over. And you should be able to see the difference. See how the camera picks it up? Between the streaks and building up your values. So you're going to get much smoother building up your values. The next technique we want to talk about is the pinch technique. And the pinch technique basically is how do we get from this value to this value? Because these values are created by how we hold our pencil. So now we're going to talk about pinching. So pinching is applying pressure, which creates a darker value. So we're going to do 3 grips, and we're going to call this the pinch technique. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to do back third, middle, and front third. We're going to use 3 grips. So I'm going to start with that back third, and I just want to bring this down. And again, we're going quickly, right? So I don't want to do too much. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pinch as hard as I can. And then I'm going to walk this up, and as I walk it up, I'm going to relax my hand, where I'm just naturally holding the pencil. So again, pinch as hard as I can, and then just relax. And that'll give you a nice little mini gradient. So now I'm going to go middle. I'm going to stay underhand. When you're shading, you want to be underhand as often as possible, because you're getting with the flatter edge of the pencil and not the point. And again, just a nice relaxed hand. And then I'm going to pinch. And then just relax the hand. Okay, so you get a nice little gradient there. Again, I'll hold this up just a little so you guys can see it. Okay, and then our next grip is going to be overhand. And I'll label these right now. Overhand, again, will take you a little bit longer because you're shading with the point and not the flat side. And then I'm going to pinch. I'm not going to pinch as hard as I can. I'm just going to pinch softly, because I want to have the same application as here. I want to build up that value. And now I'm going to pinch it dark. And then I'm going to relax my hand. Then we should see a nice little gradient. See how the camera picks it up. So the camera picks it up pretty good. So this is our back 1/3. This is our middle, and then this is our front 1/3. The last thing we're going to do is we're going to create a small little gradient. Okay, don't go too big with this. It'll take forever. And we're going to talk about a couple of things while we're doing this. One, when you're just letting control over a regular pencil like number 2 or HB, this is a great skill builder. You should do it. But if you want control over your art pencils, I do have a similar thing that we do, where we're basically doing this, but we're doing it with a 2H, we're doing it with a 4H, we're doing it with an HB, a 2B, a 4B. So basically 4H is going to be really hard and light, 2H is going to be hard but slightly darker. Your HB is going to be like your regular number 2 pencil. Your 2B is going to be softer, and your 4B is going to be really soft. There's a lot more range to art pencils, but those are the main ones we use. So I'm going to start with the back grip of the pencil. Again, I'm going to rotate because I want to go vertical. I don't want to take too much time trying to go forward soft. And I'm not going to go all the way down. I just want to go down far enough to lay value in. And then every time I go over this, I'm going to go farther and farther down because I want to build my value. So I'm going to switch to a back 1/3. Again, I'm going to rotate because I want a little bit of a grace area right here. So I'll do that to make my life easier. Go back to vertical. And again, I'm not applying any pressure. I'm just changing my grips. And as I move down, my hand will move back. So, and I want to go a little bit farther every time I go farther down. Right? So that's my second time through. And now I'm going to go to a middle grip. And I still haven't applied any pressure yet. And I'm just going to start walking back on my pencil and going farther and farther down. So I always want this to be my lightest value. I want it to be the first time I go over. And you're going to start seeing this get smoother and smoother. Now, I'm going to switch to an overhand middle. And I'm going to start moving at a slightly different angle because I want these values to get pushed around. And that will also help you avoid getting blocks of value. So you don't want to block the value. You want this to be nice and smooth. And again, I'm going to rephrase this. I'm not adding any pressure to my pencil. I'm just switching grips. When I start putting in my darker values and working into my light values, that's when I'll start using more of that pinch technique. So I'm going to go down to my bottom 1/3. Again, just work on this area. Start bringing it down. And I'm going to switch grips. Now I'm going to use a little bit of a pinch technique to work in this darker value. And then I'm going to relax my hand as I move out of it. And you'll see that I'm also changing the angles. And then I move back again. You're going to find that this is not going to be natural for you. Moving your pencil back and forth. This is not going to be natural. Soon enough that you do it, you're going to say, hey, I need a light value, and you're going to find that your hand's already there. And you're like, oh, I need a darker value, and your hand's already going to be there. You'll get to that point, but you usually have to work your way up. Moving to that front 1/3. And I'm going to apply some pressure, pinch technique. I'm going to rotate that paper just so I can get different angles. Switch my grips again. And I'll work in the darker parts and then work my way out by relaxing my hand with my new grip. Going to the back of the hand, working my way down. Okay, so I have a little bit of a, I think a little build up here or bar, so I want to just kind of work that area. And then I'm just going to lightly go over everything. Okay, so I'm going to go to that bottom grip, really apply that dark value. I'm going to change some of those angles here. And I'm just switching grips as I move down, so you can see I'm here now. And I'm going to go to my light values to bring that down. Okay, so let's take a quick look and see how this looks. Not bad. I do see a little bit that I would blend and work with right here. You're going to find when you're shading with pencils, it's reflective, so sometimes you're going to have to move your paper up and down just so you can see if what you're doing is smooth, because the light can play tricks on you. So I don't think it's so you can see how dark that is. Just move it around. Now, if I want to go darker than this, I have to switch pencils. I have to switch to a 4B pencil. So at this point, that's about as dark as I can get. I'm using a 2B, so I have to switch to a 4B pencil. And we're not going to do that, right? We're just going to leave this as a 2B. So I hope you learned something out of this. This is drawing fundamentals. Again, we just went over pencil grips. We went over back of pencil, back third, middle, front third, and front. We went over building up our values from a medium value to a dark value versus going straight to dark. And we also talked about the pinch technique, which is just simply pinching the pencil and relaxing your hand. And that gives you further control over your value. So I hope you got something out of the video. So next time, this is your art teacher, Mr. Aguilar.